Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're here and getting logged in. You just missed a wonderful backstage conversation, frankly, because you have the most amazing staff ever. And we're all very hardcore, let's just call us mama bears, basically. And then, of course, we wanted to know about Elsie's 500 square foot condo suite that she lives in, because it'd be easy to keep clean. But let me just see who's here. I'm so glad that y'all are deciding to spend some time making your real estate businesses stronger and making your life a little bit easier, because when you're smarter, makes life a little bit better. No perfection, of course, but always improvement. So as you're getting logged in over here, I still don't see Dave Stephanitis. Y'all need to text that man and say, you are the CEO of the Orange County Realtors. And if you don't show up, Leigh Brown's going to call it OCAR. Because I've been around for too long. So, hey, Joyce. And just a reminder now that Joyce has hit the chat up, if you will make sure that your to is pulled down, hit that little caret beside it, change it to everyone, so that if you have questions, everyone can see your comment or question, because they may have the same one. And as you know, if you've been with me on a webinar before, I like to answer as I go, because I too am a realtor. And I know that you have complete ADD, and if I don't answer it right away, you might just forget, and I don't want that to happen. So ask as we go. If there is a specific need that you have, or a problem you're running into, an objection that you don't know how to handle, you don't know what to do, what to say, because the markets are definitely changing right now, make sure and hit me up in the chat, and I'll be glad to help you any way that I can. And we'll start. We're a couple of minutes behind, but I like to give a minute for realtors to get logged in. If we haven't met, hello, I am Leigh Brown. I am a realtor from Concord, North Carolina, which is just north of Charlotte, where frankly, I have to tell you, I just put a fourplex on the market. That is a great deal. And I've been jumping over here, sending it to people, because y'all know sometimes you just get a new property on the market that needs to be shared. So anyway, that's where I am. I'm all the way away from y'all. I'm a 21-year realtor. I do still list, and I do still represent buyers. I have an independent brokerage. I coach and I train. And I'm also a volunteer junkie, which many of you are as well. And I'm currently vice president of advocacy for the National Association of Realtors. And I'll be able to finish that role up here very soon, whoop, whoop, when we get to San Diego for the annual meetings. And hopefully you'll all be there, because we're going to be right there in your backyard. And for heaven's sakes, we need to be together. So anyway, that's a little bit. So let's dig right in. Today, you are here to do what realtors hate to talk about. And we'll just go ahead and say it out loud. You don't like scripts and dialogues, and you know why you don't like them. Actually, I got to restart that slide because it was clunky. It's because I've been told by so many realtors, especially, let's just say early career. We won't call you young, because some of y'all ain't young, and when you're an early career realtor, there can be a lot of resistance to scripts and dialogues. And it's primarily because nobody wants to sound canned. We're always accused in this business of being equivalent to used car salesmen. We are not used car salesmen, friends. We are amazing. And when you think about what scripts and dialogues mean, all that is a way for you to have a prepared response in your head that you can then customize to the scenario. So it's not about being repetitive or robotic or fake. It's about knowing how to get somebody else to come to their decision point. You don't want to push anybody. You don't want to talk anybody into anything. But one of the gifts of a great salesman is knowing how to help somebody make the decision, whether that's yes or no. So that's what we're going to talk about today, are these scripts and dialogues. And I call the time that we're in, friends, I just call this the great unknown. And I think it's probably the best way to call it. You're all noticing what I'm noticing. Inventory is slightly ticking up, and it's not like we have a ton of inventory, but there's this much more than there was in March. So yay, which means that our buyers are still in competitive situations, but it may be 8 offers instead of 78 offers. And that's a wonderful thing, because it helps people feel that they have a chance to do something. And as you know, because I know that you're on the phone all the time, buyers and sellers and neighbors and friends and family, everybody wants to know what's going to happen next in the market. They want you to have this crystal ball. Well, those of us that have been around for a while know the last, I'd say almost 2 years now, because we've been handling this coronavirus mess for far too long. none of us expected a market like this, where it was just completely on fire, where we have been the most successful economic sector. And we know that things that are on fire tend to die down or go out over time. But the underlying economic data tell us that we're still going to see strong markets, but there's fear, but there's this, but there's that. And so when we're in a great unknown, or we don't know what's coming next, that's when you have the most important time in your real estate business. You realize that? Like, this is why you are doing well right now and why your phone rings. The questions that people have when the market is uncertain can only be answered by a professional realtor. And that's why you're here, to be that kind of professional realtor who is more than an app where they can't click on the internet and find an answer. So I want to start with how you get your mind right, because I know that many of you, this era has been hard. We talked about that in our last session, how draining it can be to be a realtor, because you're supposed to be optimistic and upbeat and positive, but the world is out of control right now with craziness, and it's just accelerating. But yet you have to keep persevering, because you bring this really important piece to the table, which is known as property ownership. So I want you to look at the face that's on the screen here. And Cassie and Elsie already had to see the preview of the slides. So they had the exact reaction that I expect from you. So hit the chat real quick and tell me the one word that would describe this right here, whether it's an emotion or something you notice. Give me one word. I'm just going to wait for that. Ruth, you have raised your hand. I don't know what to do with raised hands. And I say that not with aggression, but with love. If you have a question, hit the chat or the Q&A, because your microphones are off and your cameras are off. Well, it was just a mistake. Well, then I'll just wave at you. Then maybe you were just waving at me. So somebody hit the chat. Tell me, what do you notice when you see this man? Oh, Susan sees an accepted offer. There you go. Positive mindset. Especially after you lose 5 times, right, Susan? I mean, legit. That's like the crazy good feeling these days. And let's see. Did anybody else have an impression after looking at my friend here on the screen? You see the happiness and the excitement. And Scott, I know, right? Scott sees he's in a Zoom meeting and it's nobody's favorite, right? But you do notice that that's going to be our MO for a long time, whether it's the primary operandi that we have for a long time. We are going to be seeing this hybrid for a while, because you're always, I think, in the world now, we've made germophobia a very acceptable thing. And so I think for us as realtors, we're always going to have people that are very afraid of in person, as well as people who are not afraid at all. So the great thing about Zoom is it gives us a way to communicate with an entire spectrum of people. So more Zoom meeting, yes, he received great news. And I want to tell you the word that I use when I see, oh, Sue says relief. So you know what I see when I see him? I see connection. And here's why I see connection. It's because he's making eye contact with the screen. And you guys know what that's like, right? When you're on a Zoom, when somebody's looking over here, or they're texting during the Zoom, or they're looking down here because they forgot the cameras on, or worse, they're looking up like this and you can see up their nose. And we really lose that sense of connectivity that makes us amazing as realtors. He's maintaining that with eye contact. He's using body language by waving at the screen. And he's also using that most important tool that you guys have, which is your smile. And frankly, that's what's bothered me the most about the mask era, because I'm an overly smiley, happy, big teeth person. We're losing that ability to bring other people into connection, but he's finding a way, which is also the hallmark of a great realtor. And can I just point out that he's dressed professionally, like with a button-down shirt and a jacket. And I love realtors who dress professionally, because I know I'm going to sound like an old person when I say this, but humor me, because I'm right. When you're dressed professionally, when your hair is fixed, and when you are in place and ready to go, your confidence level is higher. When your confidence level is higher and your energy's up, you're better at converting buyers and sellers, period, in the discussion. If you are in your pajama pants and your camera's off and you're kind of slouching and lean back and pitiful, you're not going to be your most confident, energetic, professional self. It's just not going to happen. And so whether you're at home or out showing property, there is an absolute reason to putting yourself into that package that says, I want to convey a complete message that I'm in charge of this situation. I bring the knowledge and the competence to this. And then what happens, friends, is the words that come out of your mouth when you're answering objections and helping people make decisions, they're going to believe what you're saying far more than if you learn some great words today, but you say it in a half-hearted manner. We, as a profession, have got to get better about this. So I'll tell you, I was actually having a conversation on the plane this morning. You can tell I'm in a hotel room, but I'm decorating with my realtor jacket, so you can't see all my mess. I was talking to the flight attendant before I was getting off the plane because I have a broken foot and I was waiting on my scooter, and we were just chatting because realtors are good at connecting. And we were talking about our teenage kids, and I was telling her that last night I had to take my son to get a suit because he's in the band. They've got a concert coming up. And I said it was really hard to find a suit jacket that would fit him because suits are falling out of fashion. She said, oh, go to Goodwill. And I said, oh my gosh, it didn't even occur to me. My daughter loves to go to Goodwill and buy a bag of clothes for $20. It had not occurred to me to go get a suit jacket, and it would probably not even have been worn by a dead body because they put those in the ground in the casket. So that's where I'm all excited about going. And it reminded me of that because I also told my son, having that suit is something you will have in your arsenal. It is a tool that you have that helps you stand apart in the room. Now, for those of y'all that would say, but Leigh, I work the beach, but I work second home and resort. I work this, I work that. You know, those are all excuses, right? I was going to tell you something. If everybody else is wearing khakis and a polo and you're wearing an outfit, they're going to notice you. Isn't that what we want in a really crowded and competitive real estate marketplace? I'm just saying, it's just an observation. And if any of y'all work with Wayne Woodyard, you should know that he used to serve as my fashion consultant. I used to text him pictures so that he could tell me if I should wear something or not. But I had to cut him off from that job because Wayne was showing the people who work in his office and getting their opinions too. So do not send Wayne your fashion choices. He is not to be trusted. Paul probably can be though. So if we're going to do this really well, we're going to get our energy up. We're going to put on our most professional selves, right? And then I know I've been over this with you before. I also know y'all didn't download these because I track how many people download things. What? And last time it was less than 6 who downloaded any of the tools I gave you. So mama hen to chickens, listen to me on this. I can give you all of the tools necessary to make your real estate business shine, but I can give you a tool and it's only going to have any effect if you pick it up and use it. Okay. So anyway, back to knowing what to say. Let's talk about sellers because I know y'all want some more inventory. You want some more sellers because frankly, we're control freaks. And when you have the inventory, you control the market. So these are my intake sheets. Many of you already have one, right? Downloading mine could add one question to yours, could make one adaptation. And one of the secrets of real estate is that it's the tweaks that you make here and there that change your business forever. And in fact, it was when I implemented these in a super consistent manner that my business got past that ceiling I was at. Because like many of you, I had hit a plateau in my business. I couldn't break past it until I got really super focused on consistency. So with the seller intake sheet, let me show you a couple of scripts on here that are game changers. Now, this was the seller one. I print these on yellow paper and I can even prove it to you because in my hotel, I'm working on one of my listings right now. There's my yellow seller intake sheet. And I keep them in these little plastic folders from Staples that have 2 sides open because number one, I like how it feels. I'm weird. I like how paper feels. It's a manila envelopes have a texture thing. I don't know. And also I can see it. So I can flip through a stack real quick and find the person to whom I'm speaking. Look, Susan's she's one of the ones that downloaded. She's like, I do it. I love you, girl. That's right. So when you look at this, it's always one page. Now, if you have one that you're using and it's 3 pages, you got to get it pared down. Why? Because we're realtors and we're never going to use more than the front page anyway. And if you've filled out all 3 pages, then it's probably because you were doodling while you were listening to them ramble. So let's go back over here. Somebody called me and it's our favorite phone call. It's the come list me call. Hey, Leigh Brown, come sell my house. So here's the next thing out of my mouth. And you guys already know this script is going to, oops, oh, where'd it go? I took out a slide by accident. So I'm a realtor. The next thing out of my mouth is this. May I ask you a few questions? Every single time, y'all, every time. every time, not just once in a while, not just when I'm remembering to get my papers out. When the phone rings and somebody says, I need to sell my house, it's, may I ask you a few questions? Here's why. They're going to say yes. Then you know what I can ask them? Everything. For the record, I also ask this of buyers. And when I'll give you the instructions for download at the end, Kathy. You have to stay to the end to get the download because I'm mean and I probably should have taught 5th grade. So when you're doing the buyer side, they may call you and say, hey, I'm over here at your listing on 73. How much is it? Realtors do the old training of answer, ask, where you're trading information. I'm far more to the point, and it works. They say, how much is it? I say, may I ask you a few questions? Cut them off. You know, they know how much it is. They looked on their app, right? And so when I say, may I ask you a few questions, it lets me get in charge of the situation, which is why they called you. Okay. So on my seller intake sheet, some of the stuff is obvious. Let me point out a couple of things that will help you tremendously. The first one is at the date at the top. This is my advice to you as somebody who's been around the block too many times. I have learned to put the year on these things because you might get an inquiry today and it's October 12th, and then you don't meet with them until next year. And then you're going to fall in that trap of, because what happened to 2020, y'all? I mean, it's like it vanished in a second. It was the longest year and the shortest year, and none of us have the foggiest idea of what happened to that year. So better write it down because they may be somebody who's in the pipeline for some while before you get to them. I've got my prospect here. I'm going to write down their name. And then I used to have spouse right here. I've changed it to decision maker number 2 for a couple of reasons. One is that a lot of people are buying houses with somebody they're not married to. The household formation rate is really slow right now. And also there's a lot of young people who, because they've grown up in broken homes, have decided that that may not be for them. It could also be that they have a different kind of a marriage, or maybe they're not planning to get married, but they're sleeping together. I don't judge, but somebody else might be involved in the decision, including the worst one ever. And you know who this is, right? That's dad. Because dad can be the worst person in a decision. And gentlemen in the room, I know that y'all aren't that kind of dad because you have to deal with them. So when somebody said, I think, great, tell me your name. And so I'll give you the lady I'm working with right now. I met with her last night. I love her so much. And so I wrote it down, Brenda Yao. And I said, Brenda, who all else is going to be involved in this decision? And that's when she said, well, my husband died on September the 1st. And I was like, oh, she's ready to go. And I always ask people to spell their name. Ask somebody whose name is rarely spelled correctly. I always ask, even if it's an easy one. And you know what people say? They generally say, thank you for asking. So think about this. The minute you've asked something that seems so specific, like how do you spell your name? And they said, thank you. You've just elevated the relationship versus your competitors. Y'all catch me on that? That's why this is not as hard as you thought to blow your competition away. They're just trying to get to home base, right? They just want the address. They want to get over there and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, get that listing. And you're the one that's courting. You're like, well, let's just talk for a minute first. Let's sit here on the bench and get to know one another before I try to take you home with me, or you take me to your home. Frankly, that's what we're looking for on a listing. And so then I write down the address and the city and the state and all that. Now, here's a secret. Now, I'm going to give you this secret because you're with me today and your competitors are not. And so shame on them for not showing up. So you see this little red question here. I guarantee y'all were already asking it, but I'm going to give you a tweak to it that's going to change everything. I've been asking, how do you prefer to be contacted, right? To get the channel, since some people are telephone, some are text, some are email. In fact, no lie, I have one prospect who's actually a closed client now, who like to talk to me over chat on Words with Friends. And don't ask me why. I don't judge. I just like to play Words with Friends, and that's where we did their business. But anyway, I always ask the question, right? Here's the problem. When you get their email, how many of us have a problem getting people to respond? Because they don't live by email. And then you may text somebody and they're not really a texter. Some people, you call them and you get the worst sound ever. The voicemail you have reached is full, which sadly is usually the realtor on the other side. But here's what you got to change, because people are getting more and more resistant to talking to anybody. We are developing major walls and major connection problems. Add 4 words. And this is how I say it. So you ready to take a note, because it's not even written down. How do I reach you when I need you? That's the big game changer. because you're defining the parameters. And what my seller suspects say to me almost every time is, well, why do you need me? And that's when I explain, when I have an offer on your house, I need to find you because it may have a fuse on it and it may be the great offer. Or maybe you've turned down a showing and I'm going to have to read you up and down the country because we cannot turn down showings. Maybe you have a question and you called and left me a message and I've called you back and now you screened me. I want to make sure that you're educated in the process. They love it, y'all. They love being told why the realtor calls because they don't want us to pester them and you don't have time for it anyway. So they tell me, and the funniest thing is it tends to be a two-step process now. So if I say when I need you, and it's because I have an offer and I need you, they'll say, well, text me first and then call me. Got it. And I put that down so I know the pathway. And then I've got, again, inside scoop that my competitors don't have. And I also write down if they have a separate text phone number because people are getting more and more burner phones and Google Voice numbers and the world is crazy. So then I'm going to write down the phone numbers, the cell phone number for the number 2 person. I always ask them for their email address. And then I ask them, what's the email they actually check? And then they giggle because you know they're giving you the email they use for coupons from the grocery store or the one for CVS. Remember how CVS used to give you a receipt that was like 4 miles long with all these things you didn't need on it? Well, now they send it by email, and that's the email people are giving the real estate person because they don't want you to aggravate them. So if you ask them, which one do you check, you get a little bit of resistance. And what I tell them is, I'm not going to spam you. I'm not even going to pester you. But when we have things like a preliminary closing disclosure, when I need to put the offer into your hands so you can review it before we DocuSign it, did y'all hear me on that? That they should be reviewing before they DocuSign. Hello, quit just sending things to DocuSign. Anyway, I rabbit there. And so I tell them I'm going to need that, but that's what I'm going to use it for. They will give it to you. You've got gold in your hands now, but you have to use it wisely and don't abuse it by sending them crap they don't need. I ask, is the property address the same as your mailing address? This is going to uncover investors, second homes. It can also uncover divorces and relocation. The sooner in the process you can find out that driving force behind this decision, the better it is for you because you can then personalize the experience for them. And so then I'm going to ask the usual questions, well, how long have you lived there and where you going? That kind of thing that you typically ask. I have had agents that argue with me on this. They're like, but Leigh, I know because I have the tax records. I hate to be the one to tell you, but I'm just going to take all the secrets away. The tax records are inaccurate, right? Because it's run by municipal employees who give how much of a care, like less than 0. They're wrong as much as they're right. So I always want to confirm with the homeowner. Plus, when you ask them things like how many bedrooms do you have, and they say 5, and the tax record says 3, you say, the tax record says y'all have 3. How'd you get 5 bedrooms? We added on. Great. Did you get a permit? You can already show your professional level of competence and knowledge by asking great questions as you're in this initial phone call. That's how important these scripts are because you're going to be wildly better than your competitors in the first 5 minutes. They're trying to run to the house. You're over here digging deep. And then we're going to ask them a couple of other questions. Now I'm going to give you a huge secret. You ready for this? This one will change your life because it changed mine. And so obviously it's going to work for you too, because it does. I have lost listings in the past because we all lose listings, right? I love agents say they never lose one. So you didn't go on enough appointments then. And you've been with that seller and they said, hey, tell me what to do to get the house ready. I need my list. And you, of course, can make a list because y'all are great at giving instruction. So you pull it out and you've made all your notes and you sit down at the kitchen table and you're like, okay, friend. So we're going to do X and Y and Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and let's go ahead and do L too. And she's nodding the whole time. Oh, thank you. Yes, this is exactly what I needed. I'm on it. I'm on it. And you're thinking, I got her. I'm great. I'm amazing. She loves me. We're peas and carrots. And then you call the next day and say, hey, Cassie, are you ready for me to come over and list your house? And she says, I went with Ruth because Ruth liked my house. Thank you. And you're thinking, are you serious? You asked my opinion, I gave it to you, and I was even kind about it, but you lost the listing because her feelings got hurt. And I know that y'all have been in that position before, because it's hilarious to me how real estate's the same coast to coast. So this is what fixed it for me. I had to figure out how to shift the mindset. And that's the gift of a wonderful realtor. You know how to educate with your words. So here's what I changed. I realized that my sellers, when I asked them during the intake process, rate your house on a scale of 1 to 10, they would all tell me what? They'd all tell me 10. And then I'd go to the house expecting a 10 and be very disappointed, because usually it's not a 10, right? And it's because they don't know what a 10 is. They haven't seen the scale of houses. They haven't seen everything in the market that you have. So I realized I had to explain to them what a 10 is and also what a 1 is, so that if they understood the parameters, they could tell me where they fall. So here's how I asked the question. And I'll just use Cassie as my example, because she's wonderful. So Cassie, if I were to ask you to rate your house on a scale of 1 to 10, now a 1, a 1's got busted out windows, it's got pee in the carpet, it's pretty bad, but it'll sell because a 1 will be cheap. I don't say priced right, because the consumer would say cheap. You and I would say priced right. And then a 10, I love 10s. Every realtor loves 10s. 10 is new construction. It has the latest in flooring, the latest in countertops. It's got this beautifully set up staging throughout the house. They've got 1 vanilla scented Glade plug-in, 1. They got a little bit of soft classical music in the background. The walls are the right color. Sea Salt by Sherwin-Williams, a special white is the trim. They've got a fully done yard. Like top to bottom, and they fenced it. And then for every showing, they rented a 10-year-old to ride down the sidewalk on his bicycle. That's a 10. And where would you put your house? The wild thing is, y'all, when you make it super visual, they get very realistic, because we know that a 10, if it's new construction, even if it's a renovated house, it's not the same as new construction. So if you're an early career realtor on this call today, I want you to understand why a completely renovated house is not going to get the premium that new construction does. And it's because of mechanicals. It's because the plumbing is new, the electrical's new, the windows, the roof, the machines, the appliances, all that stuff is new, and they're all built to different standards today. And we're not going to have the argument about things being built better in the 60s, because they might have been built better, but they're still 60 years old. So a fully renovated house, that's why new pulls a premium. So just so you know, it's not about the cosmetics, it's about the structure. So now the seller knows I'm not a 10, so I'm pretty good. And on my research, because I track every phone call, and I know I'm a nerd, the average is right at 7. So here's what a great salesperson does. You read a lot of sales books. And if you've never read the books that Mary Kay Ash wrote, the founder of Mary Kay Cosmetics, she was one of the most brilliant entrepreneurs to ever live, changed more lives than most people will ever dream of changing. And she wrote a ton of books. So I highly recommend them. Whether you enjoy Mary Kay Cosmetics or not is irrelevant. Don't overlook the power of the pink. And what Mary Kay created was the script that is the easiest follow-up ever. So my seller suspect here, Cassie, says, I'm a 7. I get to say, great. What does it take to make you a 10? And then she says, well, I was going to ask you if I should change out the flooring. Look, if they're going to ask, the answer is yes, right? And there's this wallpaper in the house, and it was here when we moved in, and we were going to change it. We never got around to it. So should we change it? And then the kids moved out. We're empty nesters. Oh, so we don't use the hall bath anymore. And I think it's got a leak under the toilet. So should we fix it? And we adopted a Great Dane. He tore up the yard. Should we take care of that? And we've got brass fixtures. And should we change it? And we got popcorn textured ceiling. Should we change that? And they'll list it all off because they know. That's the wildest thing. They've been watching Love It or List It and Property Brothers and all the other HGTV crap. They already knew the house had to have a certain kind of a look. And then as soon as she gives me that list, I say, okay, so if we do that list of things, does that make you a 10? And she says, yes. I got you. I got a guy. Because one of the reasons they call you as a professional realtor is for that list of amazing contacts that you have. Your Rolodex, your address book is a value to you. So do y'all hear how big of a shift that is? It's that tweak I was talking about earlier. The next time somebody calls you to sell, if you will change that question from 1 to 10 and explain the scale, it's a game changer, I'm telling you. And by the way, if you're not okay saying pee in the carpet, busted out windows, because you're far more delicate than I am, find another way to be uber descriptive. And it's because most of the public has never seen a 1. They think that if they didn't run the dishwasher, it's a 1, or if they didn't make the bed. They have no idea that our scale is very big. And so just think about the way that you could describe it that would help them move forward. So then there's another question I want you to ask. So and we're in a changing market. This is a super important question to ask. And hopefully you've been asking this since everything started last year, or since you started your career. Oh, since day one, this is a very important question. Most agents will never ask this, because right now, when you get a listing call, are you kind of cashing the check already in your head? I mean, truthfully, you're thinking, if I'm anywhere in the ballpark on price, if they're anywhere in the ballpark on condition, it'll sell. And that's pretty much the recipe for disaster, because it's happened to all of us. You got the perfect listing. It's going to go right away. It's going to be perfect. And then it sits, has 1 million zillion showings. Everybody in town's gone through. There are no offers. And you're so twitchy and anxious about it. You could just about die, because the public thinks houses sell in 2 seconds now. And a lot of them do. But in your MLS, are there unsold houses? There are. Did y'all look at it? Now, my response to this from realtors is, there's nothing in our MLS. I'm like, let's go look it up. And they're like, well, there's some houses in here, but they're overpriced for the condition they're in. Remember that price and condition are always a married couple. It's overpriced for the condition it's in. There's always something that hasn't sold. So it's important to ask this question so that you know what you're dealing with. So as I go down my sheet and we're talking about this top 10, well, if your house doesn't sell, what does that mean to you? Again, it's a set apart. Just like professional dress can help you stand apart with your competitors, asking a question like this does too. The seller may come back to you and say, what do you mean if it doesn't sell? Everything sells. I'm like, well, I understand, but market conditions are fluid. That means they can change at any time. So if the market dies right now and your house doesn't sell, what does that mean to you? Some sellers will say, well, I don't care what the market's doing. My house has to go because we got under contract and our deposit's down, or we're moving and the kids are out, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's just make sure we have an open dialogue about the fact that the house has to sell. And some people will say, well, if it doesn't sell, that's fine. Now, if you know that, do you have a non-serious seller on your hands possibly? And are they a complete drainage of your energy and resources? So this is going to allow you to direct your limited time and your limited resources towards the people that can help. But more importantly, it sets you apart as the realtor who understands that market conditions change. They just do. And I'll point out to you that when the markets all shifted back at the beginning of the Great Recession, it was very zip code specific. Phoenix and Vegas were going downhill far earlier than Charlotte, where I am. Charlotte didn't start to react until January of 2008. And so we were far behind the other fall off. Our market thought it was insulated. No market was insulated. Just like with coronavirus, when it hit, some people thought it was insulated. It was not insulated. It's been everywhere. It's just things get hit at different times. So be that agent that says, if it doesn't sell, what does that mean to you? So jumping over to the buyer intake sheet, I get agents push back at me on this. They're like, but if I don't just jump over and go show them the house, then they'll go to somebody else. Well, listen, you're a professional realtor, right? Isn't that why you're here today? To be the most professional realtor possible? Treat yourself that way. Look, if you were calling an attorney because you were about to get divorced, you wouldn't be able to talk to the attorney right away. You'd be talking to the gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper is going to ask you a lot of questions before you're allowed to talk to the attorney. So instead of the buyer who calls and says, hey, come show me this house in Dana Point, and you hop up and go, you say, may I ask you a few questions? Now, on the buyer side, I'll point out that not everybody says yes. On the seller side, they do because they expect to be quizzed. Some buyers are ugly and they say things like, no, because you're the listing agent and you have to show it to me. And I don't want an agent and I don't have an agent. And I've got a briefcase full of cash. And if you don't show it, I'll let somebody else do it. And they get nasty. And what do? Because you know what you do. Because y'all are passive aggressive and non-confrontational. You're the one that says, okay, I'll just run over and show it real quick. And that's when you're at risk. And we just finished Realtor Safety Month. Every time you get up and go show a house to somebody who's ugly to you and who you did not vet professionally, you're putting your life at risk. Y'all, we just had a realtor get murdered here at the Virginia, North Carolina border over the weekend. Did y'all see that? And he got shot by an 84-year-old who called the police and said, I shot my realtor. That's how dangerous our profession is. So I want you to think about your professional approach as being something that keeps you safe, because your clients of today and the clients of tomorrow, they need you to be alive, not to mention your family, your mom and daddy and spouse and kids, come on. So with the buyers, we say, may I ask you a few questions? They say yes. Going to go through all these same kinds of questions with a couple of adaptations here that will change the game for you on buyers. Of course, most of your competitors get a name and a phone number, hop up and go show it. We're not going to do that. We're going to go through all of these questions that are very similar, who all's involved in the decision, so you can find out if there's a daddy. You're going to ask them, what's the way to find you when I need you? The buyer will say, why do you need me? And that's when you have to say, look, the market that we're in does not give us any grace period. If the right house comes on the market, I have to clear the decks, and so do you. Because I have had too many buyers that will say, well, we're busy, and so we can go see it next Tuesday. And you're like, the house is going to be gone this afternoon if you don't go. And they're like, well, then it wasn't meant to be. Okay, so do you have a real buyer? You do not. Or you have the buyer that says, well, will you call the listing agent and see if they'll wait for our offer? And you have to be the one that says, no, ma'am, I will not, because that's not going to happen. So you got to set that expectation with buyers up front. I'm going to hunt you down when I find the correct house, because we have to lock and load to get the house. The more you show them that you understand the market and the impact on them by using your past experience, the more successful you'll be. And also remember, your colleagues that are on this call, some of them have done this longer than you have. And a lot of them would mentor you if you asked. And if you've lost out in multiple offers one time and you want to know how somebody else has survived doing this for months and months, and they've lost out and still sold houses, take them to lunch and ask them for some advice, because the people that are in real estate are the most caring and sharing people on the planet if you just ask. And so I'm going to use this form to go through those questions. I'm really going to uncover their time frame a lot in the section under the email where it says, do you own currently? And if they say yes, that's when I'm going to ask that tricky question of, well, do you want to sell? Now, I don't ask them if they need to sell. Did you catch the difference? Because need and want kick up two different defensive mechanisms. I say, well, do you want to sell that one? And sometimes they say, well, no, we don't want to sell this one at all. We're going to keep it and we're going to buy something else. Okay, so are you paying cash or do you need to obtain financing? Which is the most important question you ever ask a buyer, because that's going to lead you into, can they do it? When do you need to find that out? Oh, like right now. And also I ask them if they're renting, when is your lease up? Because y'all, sometimes right now people are renting because they're so tired of losing. They just gave up for a while. And after they quit for 6 months and they want to get back in the market now because we've seen a little stabilization, they're worried about interest rates and think they better get it done. Well, maybe the agent they were using last year has already quit and give up, because we have a very high attrition rate in real estate. So of course you've asked, who's your agent? They don't have one. We're renting. When's your lease up? In December. And what do you tell them? We better get cracking if we're going to get you in something in your time frame. Can you go month to month? When you ask people if they have the ability to go month to month, you're going to take their defensive mechanisms down, because you're not going to rush them. You've asked them if they have the ability to slow themselves down. Now they can speed themselves up because they feel like you're a safe person for that. So that's my next question. And when I ask the lease terms, can you go month to month? And then if they're a year into they got a year to go, that's when you can say, great, so we have time. When do you want to move? Do you want to carry rent and a mortgage payment? Do you want to do a buyout? Let's talk about options. We're not even talking about house, right? with many realtors, we jump so quickly into, well, how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms and where do you want to be? And we forget that there's a whole logistical piece there that needs to get figured out before we find the house. And that's a set apart, friends. Again, you've got 5 digits of realtors in the OC. I got 20,000 in Charlotte, so I know what you're talking about. When you have that many competitors, anything that sets you apart as a professional can be what wins you the client's trust, which wins you their business. So on working with an agent, I like to have a reminder about agency very early in the questionnaire here, but I don't ask it that way. So I'm going to give you a secret that I learned from one of my colleagues in Charlotte. And I learned this from Heidi, and I said, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And she said, go ahead and use it, because again, great realtors love to share. She would never say, are you working with an agent? Because people will lie. She would say, who's your agent? And then what's crazy, they don't have time to lie. They would spit the name out. Like, fantastic. Let me give you the MLS number. You tell him to call me and I will help any way that I can. Help them use the correct relationship if they have one in place, so that you're not wasting time or accidentally getting in the way of somebody else's client agency relationship. Motivation level. Here's what I ask them. When do you need to be in this house? Like, what's your time frame? Well, we need to be in something by next summer. Why next summer? Because we're going to have a baby. Oh, well, congratulations. We're not pregnant yet. Well, okay. So, all right. So, okay. And that's going to tell me if they're planners, are they in the process? Just sometimes a direct question is the way to go. Now, this was actually a really important question to ask. The script here of, what's the best time for you to look at houses? If they tell me they have to look on Sundays because they're both nurses and that's their day off, I'm going to tell them right away. Then I'm going to, with your permission, connect you to a really amazing professional realtor in this market, because I don't show property on Sundays. And if they say to me, but we want you, I say, I understand that. But for me, Sundays are for worship and family. I have to cook for my mother and dad. We have a lot of preset obligations. If you look on Sundays, I can't be your best realtor. So may I connect you to someone? Go ahead and place the referral. I'm not sure why in this business we do this. We put our own lives on hold to try and win somebody else over, and then we're burned out. And you can't even do a good job if you're burned out. So that's why I ask this. I'm trying to figure out if we can work together. And then I'm going to ask them the typical questions. Tell me more about your budget. What's your monthly budget that you can stomach? And have you talked to anybody about verifying what the price range is that goes with your monthly budget? You catch what I said there? I don't ask them their price range. I ask them the monthly budget. And then I ask them, have you talked to anyone that can confirm the price range that goes with that monthly budget? I like to draw a line early that I'm going to honor their budget. And a lot of realtors are known for encouraging people to spend more than they should. I'm sure that's not y'all. I'm sure it's other people in the market. It would never be you. When we have a reputation of encouraging people to spend more than they can afford, we're hammering what people think about realtors as professionals. I want them to always think about the monthly, not because that matters, especially with the inflation issues we're having right now. The cost of gasoline is insane, and it's going to get real high this winter as heat and oil goes up. We're talking about the grocery store prices are going up, and people are hoarding now because the container ships are off the coast. I mean, it's wild right now. I want them to think about that monthly budget, because if they're already stretching and now we know there's other pressures on their budget, I've got to be the right kind of realtor and tell them there are inflationary pressures on the rest of your budget. Let's make sure that the house doesn't make that worse. Sometimes you're going to talk your way out of a commission. That's okay. It is okay to be the one that helped them make a wise future financial decision. Are you with me on that? Because I will tell you what my daddy told me on day one in real estate and every day until he retired. If you do people the right way, the money will find you. If you're the realtor who's chasing the check first, people will smell it, and hopefully you'll go out of business, because I'm so tired of how we are known in this business for hurting people because we're not thinking about the day-to-day implications in their lives. I need y'all to be the leaders in this market. You're with me today. I need y'all to lead the way. And I need you to educate fellow realtors. And in fact, you need to call somebody else in your office and say, you need to be taking advantage of the education that OCR is putting out because it will make you better and make all of us perceived better in the marketplace. Anyway, so then I write down on here when my initial consultation is. It's always in a lighted place where other people are located, where there is internet. We are not having an initial consultation at the house. I don't care how hot the market is. Y'all have to stop saying, I'll just talk to them about this stuff when I meet them at the house. Stop it. That's how people wind up dead. And it's how you wind up wasting so much time. And so I tell them, if you need to see that house today, we're going to meet an hour prior and we can meet at, here's some locations, and then we'll roll over to the house. I need them to understand that they're not going to stop me being a professional. And sometimes it means I don't get to work with that buyer. I don't care. You have to learn how to say, I don't care if I don't get every piece of business, because it's not meant for you to have all of it. It's meant for somebody else to have that jerk that will suck you dry. And so I already gave you all this question, but I'm gonna give it again. See how important it is on here? Will you be paying cash or will you need to obtain financing? Almost 30% of the transactions in the US are cash. As a realtor, if you jump into pre-approval, who's your lender, what's your down payment, what's your bank right away, you're actually telling the cash buyer that you maybe don't work cash. I love cash. So instead, change the question, will you be paying cash or will you need to obtain financing? And that way the cash buyers can say cash and the financing buyers can say we're getting a loan. Fantastic. Who are we using? I'm going to point out here too something that you need to be aware of. The internet is eating all of us alive. As realtors, we're losing business to apps, to people who can click to schedule with the employee of another firm, and our agency relationships are getting in the tangled ups. And then they maybe talk to you about selling their house and they clicked a button to get a number from a hedge fund who took the house and ran. On the lending side, you've got more and more buyers that go to the internet to get pre-approved and bring you their email from Slowin or from Moneybush. You can use your Roget's Thesaurus to figure out the synonyms there. And then when the trouble hits and there's an underwriting issue, there's nothing you can do to help. And I want you to learn how to tell buyers that the reason I'd like to connect you to a local money professional, I don't call them lenders because that just sounds kind of greasy. I say money professional. I want to connect you to a local money professional because if something goes wrong, I can get a hold of him or her. I can go to the office and dig my elbow in their side and say, finish the file, do the VOE, get this done. If you, my buyer friend, if you go to the interwebs and pull down some company from afar, there's nothing I can do if they screw up because they don't know me, they don't know you, and frankly, they don't care. It's not going to cost you more to use somebody locally, but it could cost you everything if you don't. That's how important this is. I'll also point out that if you as a listing agent are competing with the people who click on an app and now they got an estimate, they want to know what you think about it. I'm not winning every battle against these, okay? But let me tell you what's helped me tremendously. If I've offered to be a second opinion. I do this with everybody. Well, we're going to think about going with a willow tree gave us a Z buyer on the internet. And I'm like, would you like a second opinion to the app's number? Sure. So I go to the house and they show me that number and I show them the market data. I pull up my whole presentation. Here's what I let them know. I understand that convenience is important. Who doesn't want more convenience in their life? So I'm going to acknowledge why they go to those apps. It's not because they love those companies. It's because it's convenient. Y'all know that, right? And so I understand how important convenience is, but let me just remind you of something as you're making this big decision. I'm a small local business. There's fees associated with that website. There's fees associated with me. When you pay the fees to that website, it goes to the shareholder's bottom line. When you pay the fee to me as your listing agent, I sponsor the Little League team and I go to the grocery store and I sponsor 5Ks and I go to the gas station and I drive my kids around town and go out to eat and buy things. And the money that you pay me stays here in our local community. And I'm not trying to guilt you or fault you. The decision is yours, but I want you to think about the difference between the outcomes there. Y'all, that saved me a couple of listings. And I think it's really important that we convey that to our neighbors because they just don't always understand that we're local businesses. They think about all of us as just real estate, like we must have some company card or expense account. And I don't know if y'all do, but I don't. So one other question I'll ask a buyer as I'm talking through all these things is, all right, what's that one special thing you want to find in a house? I'm not asking them, what do you want, right? Because we ask things sometimes in a pretty abrupt way. What's the special thing you want to find? So I write that down. I gotta tell y'all, when I met with Miss Brenda last night, I asked her the one special she's selling and buying. I said, what's the one special thing you want to find in a house? And she said, I want trees at the perimeter. I said, talk to me about that. She said, the house I have now, the trees are up here in the yard and I'm tired of cleaning off the roof and they eat up my flower beds. I want trees at the edge so nobody can see me, but I want a sunny yard. And I said, we can make that happen. So here's the thing, y'all. When you ask the special thing and you put it on your little intake sheet, now when you find the house that has that and you take her to the house, she sees it. You know what she says? This happened so many times. Oh, you found me the master bath I wanted, or the trees at the perimeter. You found it. And they think that you're amazing. You are amazing. So give them a way to recognize it. It's a good thing. And then, of course, I just went over this script with you. Very, very, very important. And again, I mentioned to you about payments. I want you to ask them as well as they talk about their lender relationship with the money professional. Ask them if they've checked out all their payment options. I'm a little, well, not a little bit mad. I get very mad about the fact that a lot of lenders right now don't talk about VA as an option. There's an advantage to a VA loan. First of all, we want to take care of those who serve this amazing country. But second of all, did y'all know that it's faster to get an appraisal on VA than any other loan because the VA is going to hold the line on appraisal timeframes? That's an advantage to the seller that could help your VA buyer stand out. If your veteran wasn't told about the VA loan, be the one that says, did you get that full buffet of options? Help them see the pros and cons. And yes, you better be able to sell it to the listing agent. That's a different discussion, but make sure that the buyer is getting everything they've been asking for, because as markets shift, our buyers are going to find themselves more in control than they have been. And we as realtors have to make sure they're getting the best advice possible. So if you're going to implement these things to say, and if you have to, Leigh, I'm ready. Make my phone ring. I want a listing opportunity. Give me somebody to talk to. So you got to make some phone calls like every day. And you know this. And I know that I'm telling you and you already know it and you're not doing it. And I love how realtors tell me they're calling people. Who are you calling? I called this one back and that, calling people back, call people fresh. Go to your contacts in your phone, call one person a day. And when I say in my targets, I love old people, which is the old lady I met with last night whose husband has passed. When I make my one phone call a day, I'm going to call the old people first because that's my target demographic. It's not because I love them more, although I probably do, but I want to be specific about my efforts. So one phone call a day. Now, here's what you say. Hey, how are you doing? We make things a lot harder than they need to be. And part of the reason realtors are reluctant to make outbound phone calls, you don't want to sound icky and gross. I don't either. I get you. I'm an introvert by nature. I do not want to say, who do you know that needs to buy or sell a house? Well, the market's moving. Who do you know that's moving? And I'm never too busy for your referrals. And I can't be like that. I don't have it in me. But I can call and say, hey, it's Leigh Brown at One Community. How are you? And she'll say, good. Thinking about you. What you doing? That's all it takes. Y'all, the world is so broken right now as far as relationships. You're amazingly powerful when you make that outbound phone call. Now, because my agents are also allergic to prospecting, like many of you are, I know, I'm not judging, I'm just acknowledging. The rule in my office is one call a day, that's it. At 8 a.m., call somebody and say, hey, how you doing? See what you can do to help. Maybe they just need a somebody to talk to for a minute. And if you talk to them, you know what happens? You go to top of mind. Same thing, you're buying a car, you see that car everywhere. If you're pregnant, you see pregnant people everywhere. You're a grandma, you see grandmas everywhere. When you call somebody and you're a realtor, they then go out into the world and hear people talk about buying and selling, they can say, oh, call Joyce, I love her. And then they start sending you business spontaneously because you cared enough to call. That's what matters about this. And when you ask people how they are, I don't want you to speed it up. I'm guilty of this as anybody. I'd like to crush through all my stuff at one time. Hey, how are you? Okay, I got 35 seconds for this phone call. Good, goodbye. Okay, you can't do that. You need to say, how are you? And let them talk. And then you need to be interested in the answer. Fake it if you have to. But you got to be more relational. I think coronavirus era has taught us to slow it down a little bit. We need to hang on to that lesson and care just a little bit more than we have, because the relationship that we have with our clients is so intimate. I mean, they tell us things they probably shouldn't tell us, but when we ask them how they are and they start to tell you. So when Brenda was telling me the whole story about Paul's death and all that happened, I just let her talk. So solid 30 minutes of her just unloading. And then she stopped and she said, I went too much. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. I love hearing this story. I love celebrating life. Be that person that cares enough to listen. And then if you're really struggling for something to say once you're on the phone, I'll give you a little secret here, because I love to eat. Food's my love language. I don't know about y'all, but when you're chatting it up and how you doing and this and this and this, like, listen, I got a quick question for you. They'll say, what? Because they expect it to be real estate. And I'm like, we eat out at the same 5 places every time. What's your favorite restaurant? I need somewhere new. Do you know people will tell you like 12 different things? Like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Well, I love X, blah, 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 blah. Write the notes down, because I picked up a piece of information here that's helpful. Now they're going to think about me in a positive way because I didn't shove real estate down their throat, and they're going to send me John from work. And then what am I going to send to them? A gift card to their favorite Thai place, because they told me their favorite restaurant. Now I can give them a thank you that is tailored to them. And also I have somewhere new to go eat. So it's not a bad thing. And it's always good to ask permission too, when you're just chatting people up. If they don't need anything and they don't talk real estate. Again, I do a lot of permission-based marketing. It's Seth Godin. If you never read any of his stuff, it's all really good. And I said, may I check on you periodically? I mean, as a realtor, I'm supposed to call people anyway, but I just want to make sure it's okay if I call and check in. Asking permission is huge, right? So now they're going to say yes, because nobody says no. If they say no, don't ever call me again, well, then you should probably, take them out of your phone. But if they said yes, I go to my Google Calendar and I make a little appointment in 6 months just to call and check in and say, hey, I told you I'd check on you every now and then, and it must be every now and then. What you doing? So I'll point out to you one last thing. Of course, fair housing is not just in April and Fair Housing Month, it's all the time. So just a reminder that we have these really great collateral items available at nar.realtor. You can always toss this into your social media content message and let people know that whether you talk about it all the time or not, that you love helping all your neighbors. That's what fair housing boils down to. It's helping all of our neighbors. So just a reminder, those don't cost you anything. They're included with your realtor dues, and they're there if you get stuck for content ideas. And from a fair housing perspective, because I always like to remind you, if you haven't done this as a training exercise, it's really good. It's fairhaven.realtor. It's available on its own. So fairhaven.realtor is a direct link. Take you about an hour. It's a fantastic training meeting, but also provides a really good way to know better things to say, not to fall into our old habits of bad scripts and dialogues that maybe violate fair housing, but to have better practices. And the last thing I'll point out is that this is, of course, the 20th year of the Realtors Relief Foundation, which was founded after the attacks of 9/11. California, of course, has been a huge recipient of funds because of the wildfires that have continually happened. We've actually, in the 20 years of the Realtors Relief Foundation, given out $33 million in grants in 37 states and territories for hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, floods, volcanic eruptions. We did help out in Hawaii, and we want to make sure that we have enough money for the future to make sure we say yes. So we're currently doing a regional competition, and if you will make a gift today, text Region 13 to 71777. Orange County Realtors actually made a very nice gift, and we appreciate you for that. But each of us individually, if you want to know how much to give, My suggestion is that as individual realtors, we each do $9.11, which is a reminder that this was started because of 9/11. And because we're realtors, we haven't just kept it going. We have done big things in 20 years. And this is part of that message the public needs to know about us, that we're not just out there selling houses, we're an army of good. So if you've gotten that screenshot there, text 71777 is your 2 line, and the word is region 13. Make that $9.11 gift, and know that every penny goes back to neighbors in need, because we, the realtors, cover our own overhead so that your gifts can go back out there. And we hope to have some results to share in San Diego, but we're currently at $7.6 million raised on a goal of 8.5. So we're this close. So please also tell your colleagues and neighbors to donate. And Kathy, you had asked where the intake sheet were. There's lots of collateral materials here. Text the word kicktail to this 877 number, or you can always go to learnwithleigh.com and download to your heart's content, because I'm either efficient or lazy, depends on how you put it, but all of my stuff is in one spot. So you can go there and download anything that might make your business better. And in looking at my headshot, I realized I need to get my color updated. So I'm going to go call my hairdresser next. But thank you for spending this hour with me today. There's my social handles. Feel free to follow up anytime. If there's anything I can do to help you be more successful in real estate, please let me know, because our job is really important. And this is critical to our communities. There's a lot of your neighbors, y'all, that have no chance of home ownership, and small businesses that have no chance at commercial ownership without you. So make sure you're doing things the right way so that you can reach more neighbors, do great things. And I don't see any questions that are unanswered over here. So I'm going to stop the screen share here. If anybody has a question, to type into the chat. I see some thank yous from my friends. I love y'all. I'm glad to see you remotely, and I can't wait to hug some necks in San Diego very soon. Woo, it's going to be great. And I guess I'll just turn you loose. Elsie and Cassie, do you need to tell them anything? And there's Jerry coming in. Hey, Joyce. Oh, I wish I was with y'all in person. Make sure you tell Dave Stephanitis that I should be on your calendar to come back to Orange County in 2022, because I hadn't been to visit with y'all in a while. So you're overdue for a visit from Leigh Brown, and you should all text Dave a lot, because it makes him really happy to hear from you. And I guess we'll let them go. So go forth, do great things, pick up your phone and talk to somebody, because let me remind you of something. If you don't tell people you're in real estate, just remember they could get tangled up with a snake. So you should let them know you're here and can help them. I love y'all. Need anything, let me know, and I'll see you next time.